Welcome to the Health on Track podcast. Let's talk well-being.
Welcome to the Health on Track podcast, offering you a shot of wellness. I'm Yasmin, and I'm the Member Engagement and Communications Manager at GIG Gulf Insurance. Stress is kind of inevitable in our lives, and it impacts us so strongly, both physically and emotionally. So how can we minimize its impact on us and learn how to cope with it? Let's find out. I'm sitting here with Kai Simmonds, a mindset coach and yoga teacher who helps busy professionals overcome stress and burnout. She has worked with over 100 clients in the past 4 years, providing meaningful and impactful workshops to support corporate well-being. Kai believes in a holistic approach focusing on the mind, body, and soul to beat stress and burnout and live a more balanced life. Thank you for joining us, Kai.
Thank you for having me.
So how are you feeling stress-wise?
I'm good. Well, actually, I'll get more into that later on, like the stress. Like there is some stress going on in my life, but these days I look at stress a lot differently. So even if I say like I'm stressed, it's not in the same way that I would have, it doesn't mean the same thing today as it would like 3 or 4 years ago. So yeah, but I'm doing good. I'm good. How about you?
All good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you tell us more about your holistic approach?
Yeah.
Stress.
So, I mean, with stress, there's so many different things, and I'm sure we'll get into it later. But when I always say I was my first client, right? So I was the one who went through the burnout, the panic attacks, the mental health issues, the physical health issues. And I was just like on this like kind of like mission to like figure out what was wrong with me. And I kept going to the doctors and like, oh, you're fine, you're just stressed. And I was like, okay, so like, what's the pill?
Now what?
Like, what's the pill? Is there a medicine? And they're like, no, just, like stop being as stressed. And I was like, it made no sense to me. And I realized I had to find the answers myself. And so that kind of started, it was only for me to understand how to deal with my stress and all the physical, mental, and health issues that I was having because of stress that I started this journey. And I first went down the more holistic path of yoga. Well, actually, no, the first part was, of course, looking into the medical field, because the first thing is I went to doctors and I was trying to understand that. And I wasn't getting answers that I needed. So then I started going to the holistic path. And so I was like, okay, I was already pretty active in terms of physical. Like I wasn't, I was very into like, I played sports my whole life. So I had a very active lifestyle. So I was like, what's that? I am exercising. Then I was like looking at my diet. I was like, okay, for sure, there are a few things I could clean up in the here and there. And then, I did that and it got a little bit better. But there was like this, I kind of like plateaued. And like, even though I got better, it was like the body was like, I was doing all the things. And then when I started to learn more about our mind and psychology, and then also going deeper into also the spiritual route of like, wait, also I have a soul, and like there's something, into that. When I just got into the mind and the soul part of it, that was when things really started to shift on like a much bigger level in terms of, because like I said, for me, the body, the physical, I was pretty healthy anyway. So when I approach my clients, when I approach corporates, again, I'm giving them, like mind, body, soul approach, because at the end of the day, as human beings, these are all components, whether you're spiritual or religious. I'm sure most of us believe like, there's a difference between us and like a couch. We have like a soul, like I like to call it our core. And if we only address one part of who we are or as a human being, the other parts, there's just going to be a disconnection. You might like get better, but it's not going to be long lasting and impactful, which is what I'm all about, like sustainable, long lasting results. So it's when you look at yourself holistically as a human being that you can really see like immense results that impact for a long time. So that's kind of the approach that I use when it comes to my work that I do. And again, like a lot of my learning has been both from the coaching world, both from the health world, and then also from the spiritual world with my yoga teaching. So it's like kind of combining these different things and, just giving everyone like everything to kind of like understand and unpack stress and how we can manage it better on every single level or layer of who we are. So yeah, that's like the big overarching understanding of like how I work.
No, that sounds very interesting. Like I do agree with you that it's not like a tick the box. So let's, I'm going to exercise more and I'm going to be more mindful of what I eat. And then, okay, automatically my stress is not going away, because like I said, stress is inevitable. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's everywhere. And I think a lot of times, and there was a point in my like journey where I was like, the word stress, I was just like, oh, I can't do this. It's stressing me out. Oh, I can't do this. It's stressing me out. I was like trying to dodge stress. And I was like, that's a really unrealistic way of living, of like, I can't have any stress and I have to have a stress-free life. That doesn't work and very unrealistic. And also like where we live in Dubai and like just traffic causes stress, you know what I mean? So now the way that I approach stress is so much different. And it's kind of like, oh, stress, I can deal with you. And so my mindset is different because I have so much more awareness and tools and understanding of it.
But what is stress?
So it's a lot of things. So I want to break it down into a few different things because like I said, there's a few different parts. So if you just look at stress is when there's some type of imbalance in your body. So that's one. And they say that which I'll get into later. The other part on the physical response, stress is actually a physical response. It's a physiological response of our body thinking that we are in danger. And this stress goes all the way back to like our evolutionary days when we were like the early humans were just figuring out how to human. And what was happening is that, you know, like there's a part of our brain called the amygdala. The amygdala is our stress response trigger. So back in the early days, we're figuring out what's dangerous, what helps us survive, what doesn't. So like, you know, you go out, you see a snake bites someone and it's poisonous and then that person would die. So then that person seeing that, the amygdala, the stress trigger would be like, oh, snakes are dangerous, stay away from stress, right? So our amygdala is our stress response trigger. Now, this is an ancient software that is still in our brains that has not
been
upgraded, even though the world has shifted so much in like the past tens and thousands of years, especially technology. So literally what's happening is our amygdala is trying to keep us safe, trying to keep us away from danger. And when it sees something that is dangerous, amygdala sends that response and it starts pumping the cortisol, the adrenaline, or what I like to call the stress juice. And when you start pumping the cortisol, the adrenaline, your body then goes into fight or flight or freeze. So basically the stress is all of that. Your body's saying, oh, danger, fight, flight, or freeze, right? To survive. So what I like to say is like stress is not like, it's not a bad thing. It's like your body's way of protecting you. So understanding that, but the thing is, I think when you stress yourself, the other part of stress was like, I was saying is like, there's an imbalance. When you go to work out, like exercise, just lifting weights, right? You are literally causing stress on your body, but it's a good stress, right? You want to get healthier, you want to get stronger. So like thinking of stress as this bad thing, I feel like there's such a misconception. But chronic stress over a long period of time, that's when the physical health issues come up. The mental health is like not allowing your body, it wants to complete a cycle. So we call it the stress cycle. So it's like trigger, danger, stress response. But then when we move into a state where we feel safe, right? Chilled, right? Yeah. The stress juice stops pumping and then your body comes regulated and you calm down. But what's happening is, for example, for me and a lot of my clients, it's like we'll go to work, we'll have a stressful day, the stress juice is pumping, and then we go home and we bring that stress home. So you're already at an elevated mood, the stress juice is pumping, and then maybe, you know, your son or your daughter or your wife or your partner says something to you, and then it just takes you maybe from a 9 to like an 11, then you explode and you become reactive because you're still in that fight or flight phase.
So very wired.
Yeah, from work because you haven't completed the stress cycle. So a lot of the work that I do with people is like teaching them, how do you complete the stress cycle? Like when stress comes up, when that danger, perceived danger comes up, how do you respond to that? And it needs to be a physiological thing. Like I still to this day, like when anyone tells me to calm down, I'm like, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You cannot, no, like it doesn't, you don't tell calm down. You need to actually, there needs to be a physical thing, right? That happens, a shift in your body in order for you to calm down. So again, now when it's not like, oh, stress is bad. It's like, okay, now I see the stress.
Too much stress is
Yeah,
bad.
too much stress is bad, or chronic stress is also bad. So yeah, that's a little bit about what stress is and how we're dealing with it today.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting, not exciting. You said that there has to be like a physical change
Yes.
to calm down.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yes. So when you are stressed, like I was saying, the amygdala starts pumping the stress juice, adrenaline, cortisol. It activates something in your body called the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system goes from the top of your head all the way down your spine, all to your different nerves, and it's connected to your major organs. So like your heart will start pumping faster. That's through adrenaline, right? And it will start going there and it will take away everything like from the digestive system, from anywhere, from your lungs to go through the heart. activating that fight or flight. So it's a physiological thing happening. So you're stressed, you're activating, like I said, the sympathetic nervous system. And that's all that. Then when you feel like you're in a state of safety or you've completed cycle, you move from the sympathetic nervous system into the other part of us called the parasympathetic nervous system. When you're in the parasympathetic nervous system, that's when you're activating your rest and digest. So, you're activating your stomach, because when it's again, thinking about like evolutionary psychology of like, like when you're in danger back then, you're like maybe running from a lion. You don't care about digesting food. Like you're running, like you need to pump.
I don't want to be food at this
right,
point.
yeah, exactly. You don't want to be food. But then when, like the danger has gone away, then you're like, okay, I can rest, I can digest, I can like allow myself to relax. And that's why a lot of times people who are stressed, they have like digestive issues. Like I had a lot of digestive issues and gut health issues because I was always in that sympathetic nervous system of like go, 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 fight or flight. And I needed to come into the parasympathetic nervous system. And the way that you do this is through something called the vagus nerve. So it's amazing because like our body has all the tools that we need to switch from here to here. And I see so many times, I did this too, and of like us going and looking for other things outside of our, I was like, guys, like come back.
It's right here.
We've got it. We've got this turn off switch built into us, and it's called the vagus nerve. And the way that we activate it is then through things like deep belly breathing or singing or humming or slow, gentle movement, or things like shaking, tapping. And there's like hundreds and hundreds of ways to activate your vagus nerve. So like, I know everyone says, oh, stress, take a few breaths. And like, I was always those people who'd be like, take a few breaths. What is that going to do? I'd be rolling my eyes. But now I understand, oh, activate my vagus nerve by taking a few deep breaths, moving me from a fight or flight state into a safe state. Yeah, I'll take a few breaths. I'll take like a couple of breaths because I needed to understand like, why do I have to take a breath? But that's activating my vagus nerve and telling my body, hey, you're not in a fight or flight state, move into the safe state. And again, that's just one of the ways you can activate your vagus nerve. There are hundreds of ways, and a lot of them are free. Like again, massages, okay, those aren't free, but you can do a self massage. And these are ways that, like I said, when the stress comes up, it's not like, oh, react. It's like, breathe, it's massage, it's walk slowly, it's gentle movements, it's humming, it's singing. There's all these different things you can do. So just learning how to work with your own body, that's the thing that I'm most passionate about, and teaching people how to work with their own body to activate that vagus nerve and move into that safe state is like something I'm super passionate about, of like, because like for me, I was saying like when I was stressed, I was like, okay, what's the pill? All right, I was immediately looking for a medicine. Pill. Yeah, where's the chill pill? And then I was like, oh, I'm the chill pill. Oh, it's my vagus nerve. It's in me, So now I'm like, you are the medicine. Like we are the medicine. So I feel like it's also more empowering knowing that you have these tools within you. It's just, you need to have that knowledge and the practice of how to do that, which takes some time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But that's great. I mean, I didn't know that. I didn't know the whole science behind why taking a deep breath helps you relax. So that's very interesting.
Absolutely.
So from your experience and with all your clients that you work with, what do you find are the most common causes of stress?
So with the clients that I work with and myself, it's what I call little t, or unprocessed trauma. So like I was saying earlier, our stress gets triggered by a perceived danger. And I feel like in the world we live in today, especially in Dubai, like we're very privileged in the sense that, like most of us, we have shelter, we have food, we have all of our basic needs. So like we basically have everything we need to survive. So there really is no actual danger. But again, the amygdala is triggered when it has perceived danger. And when there is trauma in our life, that's when we think there's danger. And so I think and again, trauma is a very big word, but there's different types of trauma, and there's big trauma, which, like people who have physical abuse, sexual abuse, or like some type of catastrophic event, that's big T. You're probably aware of that, right? And you're probably hopefully getting support and things through that. Then there's something called little t, which is super sneaky. And this is the type of trauma that we are not aware of. And so for me, the example I always give is like, when I was in elementary school, like you're raising your hand. I was never a good student. The teacher would ask a question. I never raised my hand. I was so afraid of public speaking. Like in university, when you had to do presentations, I would be absent specifically on those days that you had to present. Like there was massive, like that was a little t for me of like So basically the reason I have that little T of like public speaking is because when I was in elementary school, you would raise your hand and, a kid would try to be funny. They would say something and then people would laugh at them and make fun of them and be like, oh, and then they would get the answer wrong or they'd get laughed at. So in my mind, seeing that, I was like, oh, if I raise my hand, people are going to make fun of me. And then again, it goes on that kind of like narrative of like, oh, people are going to make fun of me. They're not going to like me. I'm going to be excluded from the tribe because as humans, we want to be a part of the group. So I was like, oh, it's dangerous for me to speak up. It's dangerous for me to share what I have to say because I could be made fun of. So for a long time in my life, like maybe if you met me 5 years ago, I was what I call a back of the room kind of person. I never raised my hand literally in life or speaking because my body and my mind thought that by speaking up, it was unsafe for me. So that was an example of a little T. So whenever I had to do a presentation at work or do this or that, I would start to get all of the stress because the perceived danger was the little T. So a lot of times, again, with the clients I'm working with and the corporate professionals, it's like I said, if you have your basic needs, then it's not that. It's probably something from your past that is been unprocessed. So like, it's like not just about your client, like complaining about an issue. It's maybe a time in your life where someone else, a teacher, a parent, an older person said something to you where you made you feel unsafe. So it's not just about that specific event of you reacting or responding to it. It's also that unprocessed trauma or that little T coming in, then making you feel unsafe. And then stress juice is pumping, you're at a level 9, you go home, you're all wired, you're all triggered, and then something else happens and you go explode. So that's what I've seen the most, again, with my specific work that I do and also with myself. It's just this unprocessed trauma, this little T, this sneaky T. And the funny thing about our minds is like me saying this to you logically and rationally, I know that like that's not a life-threatening situation. Like I know that, like me being made fun of in the classroom at 4th grade, that's not life-threatening. But our mind doesn't understand it. Yeah. Our emotions don't understand that. Our emotions feel like it's life-threatening. So it's why you can't like outsmart the mind. You need to let yourself feel the feels. So that's the other part of the work I do of like really understanding our emotions, because as much as we want to say we're logical and we're rational, we are humans and we are emotional and we are driven by our emotions. So again, logically, that was not a life-threatening situation, but emotionally and physically, my little self thought that it was. And it carried that thought in me until I was like in my late 20s and like living my life thinking that's life-threatening to speak out in public. You know what I mean?
But that's amazing. I mean, look at you now. You're on a podcast.
Yeah.
You're a coach.
Exactly.
So how did you do that? How did you move from that, from that fear to the great person you are now?
Yeah, thank you. No, and so that's the thing is like, there's so many skills that I now have. So basically I call it my inner critic. So when I want to do something, and again, fears never go away. You just learn how to deal with them better. Like my little T never goes away. It's just like when that fear comes up, I call it my inner critic now. I name it and I identify it. That's the first thing is like when those negative thoughts come up, the second you name it, you're kind of disassociating it from who you are. So it's my inner critic. It's not me, right? And it's a fear, it's a trauma that I have. So that's the first thing I do. And before it would come in and it would kind of like take over like the things and stop me from doing things. But now it comes in and I talk to it and I put it to the side. But to be able to do this is a skill and this is a practice. So I had to go through therapy to understand what is my little trauma? What is my little T? Because I know I'm telling to you now, but I didn't just, I wasn't just walking down the street one day. I was like, oh, this is my little T. No, it was in a session with a therapist, unpacking it with me, and then bringing what I call, you bring what's in your subconscious into your consciousness, and then you can actively take the steps. So, I mean, I still work with a coach because there are things we can't access our subconscious. We can't, and that's where it's stored. Our little T is stored in our subconscious, which again, our unconscious mind, we're not conscious of this, right? So I always say it's important to get help. There's those things that you have that you're not aware of. And then in a session, you bring it to your conscious mind, and then that's when you can start to take the action steps. So that's what I started to do. Started to have dialogue with my inner critic, started to understand, started to realize, oh, is that a danger, or is that just like a perceived danger, or is that a little T? So now I can identify when these stressors come up. Instead of just reacting and responding, I take a pause and I'm like, what is it? Like I question it. And that pause between the thing coming up and you react, that pause, that's it. That's the magic. That's when you have that space to decide, do I react? Do I let it take over? Or do I question it? Do I challenge it? And the more you practice it, that pause gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So when it comes in, you're like, I still get a little nervous when I'm about to speak and I'm like, no, you've done this hundreds of times, you'll be fine, you know, So I'm like, oh, okay. And then I come in with a little less, stress. So again, it's not like I'm never stressed or I'm not never, I just know how to manage it better because I have the tools now. I have the awareness. And because I've been practicing it for so long, both by myself and with my clients, like it's like a muscle, like I've built that strength. But I always say you need to, whenever you're learning a new skill, right? It's always great to get help from a teacher or an expert versus just sitting there and trying to figure it out yourself, especially if you've never done it before. So I always say, start working with someone, a therapist, a coach, because it's going to take you so far and it's going to help you so much. And then later on, you can do it by yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great. So what are some coping mechanisms that you usually advise your clients with?
So in terms of like responding to stress?
Yeah, like dealing with stress or...
Yeah, so one of the things that I always like to talk about when it comes to stress is identifying there's a difference between stress and stressor. So a lot of times what I see people kind of get mixed up is stress and stressor. So when I already explained what stress is, right? Yeah. Then we have our stressors. So a lot of times people say, oh, it's my work. Oh, it's this. And it is, right? And so for me, what I did and what I see a lot of people doing is like, instead of addressing the stress, they address the stressor, which is the wrong approach. And so what will happen is like, oh, I'm not happy in my job. I switch jobs. Okay. Well, you have another stressor and then they react the same way. And then they're like, oh, it's this. And they keep changing all these things. And it's great that they want to do things differently. But if you don't address the stress, then it doesn't matter what the stressor is. Like you're still going to go through that process. You're still going to go through that pattern. And another thing is like, I think so many times, like I was sharing with you, is like, I was like, I need a stress-free world. But here's the thing about your stressors. Your stressors can be your job, the traffic, can be your partner, it can be your children, it can be your family, it can be your pets. So what do? You remove every single thing from your life and you have this empty life.
Live in a box, completely isolated.
Box, right? So I think for the first part, before we kind of go into that, is like, instead of blaming the stressor, which is what most people do and what I did for a very long time, I job hopped for like so many times and I kept finding myself in the same pattern. You shift from blaming the stressor to the stress. So now when the stressors come up, you know how to deal with it because you know how to deal with the stress. So kind of like what I was sharing about like the nervous system, the more you can understand how can I activate that vagus nerve. And it's a personal prescription. So this is another thing that I kind of tell people is like, people be like, oh, I did this, and it, helped me so much. And like, then you try it and you're like, oh, it didn't help me. And then you think there's something wrong with you. Or you go and you look at the influencer doing the ice bath and you're like, oh my God, good for stress. And then you're like, you do the ice bath and that actually causes you more stress, which also like ice baths and these studies that we see are particularly done on men. And the more research we do, for a long time, the medical community thought women were little men. We are not little men. Everything is different about us. But a lot of the studies when it comes to health are done on men.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that don't work for us as women. So that's another thing I always like to tell, especially women, is like, where are you getting your information? Like, yes, studies are great, but a lot of them are done in men and you have to go on this journey yourself. And I always say there's an experimentation phase where you have to try things and it's not going to work right away. Right. And I know we're very results driven and we're very like instant gratification world. And we're like, oh, this isn't working in place. And you have to try things for a long time. So what I always tell my clients is like, we focus on the 1%. What's the 1% that you can do daily that will make you feel better? And like I said, it's a personal prescription. So what works for me might not work for you. So in terms of coping mechanisms, I like to say when I'm working with people, it's like, you're going to create your own stress toolkit box. And that is your toolkit box. So you need to understand, you need to know, like for a month or two, you're just going to be like trying different things.
Trial and error.
Exactly. So again, but then you build that stress box, toolbox, and that's when the stress comes, you have that. So for me, I am boring and I am a cat lady. My cats, which are also very good for your nervous system, when they purr, that's literally a vibration that is regulating your nervous system. So for me, it's like my cats, but it's also obviously like I'm biased yoga teacher, like going to a gentle yoga class or a yin yoga class. These things I know time after time work for me. And also being alone, I need time by myself to decompress. I need to listen to music. But other people, like they need to go for a walk. They need to, I don't know, they need to sing, dance, move. But any type of movement will always be good for you. But again, it's about finding your personal prescription, your specific stress toolkit box, because that's the only way it's going to work. So that's what I think is the most important thing is like, I can give you guys 100, but not all 100 are going to work. Just find 4 or 5 that work for you and stick with that.
Yeah, because people are different. So some people find it therapeutic to clean.
Yes.
Some people prefer like cooking or baking. Some people like painting or doodling. Some people go for like boxing, while others prefer yoga or like walks. So yeah, I guess people are different, and everybody needs to find what works for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happens if we don't deal with the stress and we continue avoiding it?
Yeah. Burnout. I'm pointing to myself because that was it. And the thing I want to talk about burnout, especially as like a recovering burnout, is that when I had my first burnout episode, for me, it was kind of this like, oh my God, all of a sudden overnight, I had burnout. And for me, it was, I used to be a teacher and it was in the classroom with 25 girls, which is not a good place to have a panic attack. And so I had a panic attack and then was in the nurses' hospital and then to the doctors. And I was like, I don't know what happened. I just did. They're like, oh, that's a panic attack. And then I was like, what causes panic attacks? They're like, stress. And I was like, okay, so what do I do? And they're like, just, don't be stressed. And I was like, I didn't think I was stressed. And so that happened and I was stubborn. So I also want to say, and I was like, okay, it's my job, right? My school, they're toxic. It's their fault. Change schools, right? And I changed schools. 6 months passed, nothing happened. Then I got a panic attack while I was driving my car, which is also not a good place to have a panic attack. So when you don't deal with your stress, it, like I was saying, chronic stress, it builds up, and then burnout happens. And burnout looks different for everyone. For me, it's panic attacks, but there's definitely some type of physical health issue. For other people, it's digestive issues, which I also have. For other people, it's adrenal fatigue. It's like, I can't even get out of bed. It's I sleep and I wake up tired. And the list goes on and on and on. But the thing about burnout is I always tell people it didn't happen overnight, even though I thought it did. It happened over a period of time. So expecting your burnout to go away in a day or two, it's not going to happen. And again, I'm still stubborn, right? I told you the first panic attack 6 months later, still wasn't quite there. And then another one, I remember this time I was driving and luckily I was with my husband and I just started to cry and like panic and like there's all these things happening. And then that's when I think because of him, he was like, there's something wrong. I started to like try to go in it. And the thing that I want to talk about next is like, maybe you have your first burnout. It takes 2 weeks to recover. You come back. But if you don't go to the root cause, the next time you hit burnout, it's not going to take 2 weeks. It's going to take a month. It's going to take and again, every single time you hit burnout, your recovery to get back to normal will take longer and longer and longer. So again, it's not just about burnout, like that's it, but that recovery time. And I even had a client who for 6 months couldn't work. And I was like, I have responsibilities. I can't imagine not working for 6 months. Like, luckily he had things situated where he could, but I'm like, where would I pay? Where would I, what would I eat or what would I need to work and stuff. But so again, I think a lot of times people think and I thought if I just shove it under the rug or if I just, ignore it, it will go away. But the longer you wait, the worse it gets. And if you don't go to the root cause, and for most of us, like I said, well, at least in my world, it's usually more in the mind of like, if you're doing the healthy eating, if you're doing, the movement, it's most of that unprocessed trauma and emotions. That's where a lot of mine was on top of the stress that I was, day-to-day stress. that was the root cause for me and a lot of my people. If you don't address that, it will keep happening and keep happening and keep happening. So a lot of things, what I'm working with my clients, I don't work with people when they're burnout. I cannot. If they're at that peak burnout, they need to be with a doctor. They need to be like just getting back to normal. But when I'm working with my clients, it's like, look, I've hit burnout 2-3 times. I want to break the pattern. And that's where this work comes in, and that's where my work comes in. And like, I always like, I don't know, I don't know how many years it's been, like maybe 3 or 4 years I haven't hit burnout. And I've been like busier and busier than I've ever been in my life, doing way more things. But that's because I've addressed the root cause, because every day I am intentional about, oh, I had a rough day today. I had all this stress. I let myself process it. So when you start to, and I know a lot of people, they're like, oh, it takes too much time to do this. Oh, it costs too much. But long term, you actually lose way more time and way more money if you don't address it. Yeah. Like one of the things I did for myself, I do this because I do this for corporates, and you know, they really like to look at like profits and margins and all these things. So I did something called a burnout bill for myself, and my burnout bill was like 25,000 US dollars of all the things that I did to try to beat burnout over like the course of 5 or 6 years. But that's a lot of money. And then when I've done the burnout bill for corporates, it's like, I think in the millions, because burnout in the corporate world, it leads to turnover. It leads to absenteeism. Every time you have to hire someone, that's more time, that's more money. Like, so it costs both individuals and companies. When you look at the numbers long term, it's a lot of time and money. So yeah, there's a lot that I think, like I say, do it now, 1% a day, you will thank yourself later.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. So what is your advice to people listening to us today?
So for me, I think I've kind of said this, and I just kind of like want to reiterate it. It's like 1%. It's that 1% every day. It's that 1% check-in. That focusing on small little habits over a long period of time is going to get you further and giving you long-lasting effects than I think a lot of times, which I'm all for this. Like, please go on to a retreat. Like, please, like a lot of times I just see people like, okay, I'm going to go to Bali for 2 weeks and I'm going to cure. And I'm like, yes, go. But when you come back, focus on that 1%. Or they think that 2 weeks is going to solve their 3-4 years of like unprocessed trauma and stress. I'm like, and again, I'm all for it. Take time for yourself, take a vacation, but make sure when you come back, there is something in your daily life that you are actually doing to help yourself or complete the stress process. That's what's going to get you further. And that's what's going to cause, like, that's the long lasting impact that I'm always looking for. So it's the 1%, I'm not that I used to be 0 to 100, like all or nothing, like done or like go big or go home. And I'm like, yeah, that causes burnout. Yeah. So we're not going to do that. And like all of my clients are like this. They're perfectionists, they're high achievers. And I love this. And I'm still very much a go-getter. And I'm not saying that, but I'm like, take it down a notch. Small and steady wins the race. Like, I'm team turtle now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just actually having a conversation with a friend, and I'm like, you put all this stress on yourself, kind of, when you say like, no, I have to go to the gym every day. I have to work out only 2 hours. I cannot eat carbs whatsoever. Yeah. And then you just put all this stress on yourself. Like, okay, you know what? You missed a day at the gym. It's fine.
Yes.
Go tomorrow. Yes. It's okay.
I think, and another thing, what I was saying, anytime you're starting something new, give yourself a 1 month of experimentation phase. Like I just got into weightlifting, and that first month, I was not consistent. I was like, oh, I'm tired today. I'm not going to go. But the thing is, I still showed up and I committed. And that's another thing I think is that it's okay. And showing yourself, it's that self-talk that you have. Like when you do something, because this is what happens. Like, we're human. We're not 100% all the time. It's like when you do something, you mess up or whatever. It's when the guilt comes in that, at least for me and my clients, it's like, oh, you messed up. You didn't go today. You're never going to go. Okay, quit the program and never go. Yeah. But so it's that part, which again, with that inner critic dialogue, is like when that guilt comes in, when that inner critic comes in of like, hey, I missed a day. I'm okay to miss a day. That's the difference between me now versus then. Is I used to let that guilt, and then I kid you not, I probably would have quit this program. But like, I'm 2.5 months in, I missed a couple of days, but I'm still going. Sometimes I'm late, but I still go. And that's, again, that 1% that I'm doing for myself.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's exactly my point. Like, just go.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Go. You don't have to go every day. Just go once.
You're not going to be perfect, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, I just have one more question for you. You were saying that burnout doesn't happen overnight. So how do you recognize the signs before you kind of crash?
Yeah. So that's a huge part of the work I do is, and it's hard. And even when I say this, people are going to be like, what do you mean? But you need to learn how to listen to your body. And I know because I was this person who was like, listen to my body. I roll my eyes, but like your body whispers and then it screams and explodes, and that's the burnout. So the whispers are things for me. It was like, a lot of me was like, there was acne, right? I started like breaking out. But again, it's different for everyone. Or if there's some people who are like binge eating, you're like, what are, like, you're chasing this. Or there was another point where I was like not eating and I was like this. Or a lot of people turn into coping mechanisms like smoking, drinking, partying. And when you notice like that there's an imbalance again of like there's too much drinking, there's too much partying, there's too much sweets, there's too much this, there's something that, you know, like you're either escaping. So again, your body needs something, but because you're not listening to it, it's like looking for a substance, it's looking for something. So it's a really hard thing to do, but it's like listening to your body and like just seeing of like how are you, it's really the basics though. I know it's so boring, but like how are you sleeping? How are you eating? How are your energy levels? What is your mood like? What about your hair? What about your skin? These are all things, and I see a lot of people like, oh, I'm breaking out. What new cream can I use? What can I, and I'm like, it's probably stress. It's probably this. You're probably not drinking enough water. Like anytime I have like an outer external issue before, I used to be the one of like, okay, my hair is like, I think, I don't know, everyone like, I just moved to Dubai. I'm losing my hair. I'm like, yeah, well, because you moved and that's a stress. And now your diet is changed and your lifestyle has changed. And like, oh, the water quality is so bad. And like, please get a filter, like do that, but also think about these things. So again, like listening to your body, noticing these things, and instead of like looking for that external thing, be like taking that time to either work with someone or understand your body of like, oh, hair loss, oh, could lead to stress, or hormonal imbalance, which is so stress. So yeah, it's, I think some people are gonna roll my eyes, but it's listen to your body, listening to the whispers. And if you don't know how to do that, work with someone, find a program. Literally, that's one of the things I always do in my yoga classes. So I'm always telling my students, listen to your body. And at first they're like, what? I'm like, what parts of your body are crunchy, are stiff? That's it. You can also notice like that, like the shoulders. If you're like, every day I wake up with back pain, your body's telling you something. So yeah, your body whispers and then it screams. So listening to your body.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially if it's something that just kind of happened, even though nothing changed in your routine.
Yeah.
So you're using the same shampoo,
Yes.
nothing
Yes.
happened. But if your hair is suddenly falling
Yep.
out, that's probably something else.
Yep.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Thanks. I hope so.
Thank you so much, Kai. I mean, this was great. You've helped us understand a lot about stress. I think there's just a lot of misconceptions out there that, you know what, oh, you just need to, I don't know, go out or enjoy your time or something, and then you're going to feel better. But it's not that simple. I mean, yes, part of it is giving yourself that break.
Yes.
But you also need something more meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, like I said, it's for me, I'm always like, come back to your body. Come back. You have the tools within. You don't have to be so drastic and become like a yoga teacher, all these things, or like do these like juice cleanses and these detoxes. It's like, what is your body telling you? Come back to the body. That's where the chill pill is. That's where the medicine is. And yeah, absolutely, definitely.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. To all our listeners, now you know how to manage your stress, or at least understand it a little bit more. We encourage you to start right away and share this episode with your loved ones. This podcast is available on both the YouTubes, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Rami and Amazon Music. Stay well and keep thriving.